How could sharing a bed with my male best friend after drinks destroy my marriage when nothing even happened between us? Why did my husband serve me divorce papers at my sister's wedding reception? I'm Serafina Vance, but everyone calls me Sarah. My husband Duval thinks he knows everything about my friendship with Dimitri, but he doesn't understand that some bonds go deeper than marriage. That Friday evening at the rooftop bar would change everything, though I didn't know it yet. The city lights sparkled below us as I climbed the stairs to our usual spot. Dimitri was already there, sitting at our corner table with 2 drinks waiting. His eyes were red and puffy, and I could tell he'd been crying about his ex again. Duval had texted me twice already asking when I'd be home, but I ignored the messages. My friend needed me. She took everything, Dimitri said as I sat down. Even the dog we adopted together. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. He'd been there for me through every fight with Duval, every moment of doubt in my marriage. Now it was my turn to be his rock. We drank our first cocktails while he showed me photos of happier times with his ex. The bar filled up with the usual Friday crowd, young professionals unwinding after work. I noticed a few people from my office, but I didn't care who saw us. We weren't doing anything wrong. You deserve so much better, I told him after our second round. She never appreciated what she had. Dimitri smiled at me then, really smiled for the first time in weeks. Something fluttered in my stomach, but I pushed the feeling away. We were just friends. Best friends since college. My phone buzzed again. Duval calling this time. I declined the call and put my phone face down on the table. Dimitri raised an eyebrow, and I explained that Duval had been extra controlling lately. He didn't like me going out without him, especially with Dimitri. That's not healthy, Sarah, Dimitri said, ordering us another round. He should trust you. If he really loved you, he wouldn't try to control who you spend time with. The words made sense, especially after 3 cocktails. Duval was always questioning my friendships, always wanting to know where I was and who I was with. The bar got louder as more people arrived. Someone started playing music, and a group near us began dancing. Dimitri had to lean close to talk to me, and I could smell his cologne. The same one he'd worn since college. It reminded me of simpler times, before mortgages and marriage counseling and Duval's constant suspicion. Want to get out of here? Dimitri shouted over the noise. We can go to my place and actually hear each other talk. I nodded without hesitation. We'd done this 100 times before. His apartment was only 3 blocks away, and it was quieter than this overcrowded bar. The walk to his building felt natural, familiar. We laughed about old college stories, remembering the time we'd stayed up all night studying for finals. His apartment was exactly as I remembered it, maybe a little messier since his ex had moved out. He opened a bottle of wine and we settled on his couch. Remember when we first met? He asked, pouring generous glasses. You were dating that terrible guy. What was his name? Brad? I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my wine. We spent the next hour going through his phone, looking at old photos and videos from our college days. In every picture, we were together, arms around each other, smiling like we knew something the rest of the world didn't. I must have dozed off at some point because I woke up confused and disoriented. The room was dark and I was in bed, Dimitri's bed. My heart raced for a moment before I realized I was still fully dressed, on top of the covers. Dimitri was beside me also clothed, snoring softly. My phone showed 3:17 a.m. and 8 missed calls from Duval. 8. Part of me felt guilty, but a bigger part felt angry. Why couldn't he just trust me? Why did he always assume the worst? I sat up carefully, not wanting to wake Dimitri, and looked around the familiar room. This was innocent. We'd just fallen asleep. But then I had an idea. A way to show Duval how ridiculous his jealousy was. I held up my phone and took a selfie, making sure Dimitri's bedroom was clearly visible in the background. My hair was messy, and I looked tired, but you could definitely tell where I was. I sent it to my sister Eleanor with 3 laughing emojis and the message, crashed at Dima's after drinks, Duval is going to freak. Eleanor replied immediately with shocked emojis and, OMG Sarah, Are you serious right now? I told her nothing happened, that we just fell asleep talking. She said Duval had called her husband Jake looking for me. I told her Duval needed to relax and stop being so possessive. I stayed in the bed for another hour, not wanting to face the inevitable confrontation at home. Dimitri woke up around 5 a.m., confused to find me still there. I explained about Duval's calls, and he shook his head. "You don't deserve to be treated like a prisoner," he said. "You're an adult. You can sleep wherever you want." The drive home was quiet. The city was just waking up, and I practiced what I would say to Duval. I would not apologize. I would not let him make me feel guilty for helping a friend. If he couldn't handle me having male friends, that was his problem, not mine. I found Duval on our living room sofa with his laptop open. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept at all. When he saw me, his face went through several emotions: relief, anger, hurt, before settling into something cold and distant. "Where were you?" he asked quietly. I told him the truth. I'd been at Dimitri's. "All night?" he asked. I said yes, we'd fallen asleep after drinking and talking. "In his bed?" The question hung between us like a blade. "Yes, but nothing happened," I said, my voice getting defensive. "We were both dressed. We just fell asleep. You're being paranoid." Duval stared at me for a long moment, then looked down at his laptop screen. I caught a glimpse of a spreadsheet with columns of numbers before he closed it. "I'm not comfortable with you sleeping in another man's bed," he said slowly. "I don't think that's paranoid. I think that's a normal boundary in a marriage." I laughed then, actually laughed at him. I told him he was being controlling and jealous, that he needed to trust me or our marriage meant nothing. He asked me a simple question then. "Would you be okay if I slept in Jennifer's bed after drinks?" Jennifer was his co-worker. I told him that was completely different. Monday morning came too fast, and I knew something was wrong the moment I walked into the office. The usual morning chatter stopped when I passed the break room. Janet, who always smiled and waved, suddenly became very interested in her coffee cup. Even the security guard gave me a strange look. I sat at my desk and opened my computer, trying to ignore the weird atmosphere. My phone buzzed with a text from Dima asking if everything was okay at home. I told him Duval was still being dramatic about Friday night. He sent back a sad face emoji and said Duval didn't deserve me if he couldn't trust me. Around 10 o'clock, my manager Sandra knocked on my cubicle wall. She asked if I could come to her office for a quick chat. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral and followed her down the hallway. I could feel everyone's eyes on me as we walked past their desks. Sandra closed the door and gestured for me to sit. She pulled up something on her computer screen, then turned it toward me. It was Elena's Instagram story from Saturday morning. My selfie from Dima's bed. The caption Elena had added said, "My sister is living her best life. Girls, night gone wild." "Sarah, I need to ask if everything is all right at home," Sandra said carefully. "This was brought to my attention by several team members who are concerned about you." I felt my face burn with embarrassment and anger. How dare my co-workers spy on my personal life? I explained that it was a misunderstanding, that people were making drama out of nothing. I told her that my husband was being controlling and jealous, and that the photo was just me crashing at a friend's place after drinks. Sandra nodded slowly, but I could see she wasn't fully convinced. "I understand these things happen," she said. "But I need you to be mindful of what you share on social media. It affects team dynamics when personal drama enters the workplace." She said the word drama like it left a bad taste in her mouth. I promised to be more careful and left her office feeling humiliated. Walking back to my desk, I texted Eleanor furiously, telling her to take down the photo immediately. She replied that it already had over 200 reactions and dozens of comments. People from high school, college, even Duval's co-workers had seen it. She said she was sorry, but the damage was done. At lunch, I sat with my usual group in the cafeteria. They all went quiet when I sat down. Finally, Janet asked if it was true that I'd spent the night at another man's house. I explained that Dimitri was my best friend since college, that nothing inappropriate had happened. "But you slept in his bed?" asked Tom from accounting. "While you're married?" I told them they didn't understand the situation. Duval was trying to control who I could be friends with, trying to isolate me from people I'd known longer than him. "I don't know, Sarah," Janet said slowly. "If my husband slept in another woman's bed, drunk or not, that would be a deal breaker for me." The others nodded in agreement. I couldn't believe they were taking Duval's side without knowing the full story. "Real trust means not needing to avoid normal situations," I said, my voice getting louder. "If Duval really trusted me, he wouldn't care where I slept because he'd know I would never cheat on him." The table went silent. Sarah from HR mentioned that her ex-husband had said something similar before she caught him cheating. Everyone looked uncomfortable. I spent the rest of lunch eating in angry silence while they talked about other things. When I got back to my desk, I had a missed call from Duval on my office phone. Not my cell phone, but my actual work phone. That was unusual. I called him back and he answered on the first ring. His voice sounded different, calmer but more distant than I'd ever heard it. He told me he had a personal meeting scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. and would be unavailable for the afternoon. He asked me to pick up our daughter Lily from school since he had commitments. "What kind of commitments?" I asked, suspicious of his sudden calmness. "What's this meeting about?" He simply said he was handling some personal matters that needed attention. He wouldn't give me any more details, just repeated that I needed to get Lily on Thursday. After we hung up, I stared at our wedding photo on my desk. It was taken 5 years ago, both of us smiling like we knew we'd be happy forever. The frame was dusty. When had I stopped noticing it? When had it become just another piece of office furniture? Around 3 o'clock, I got an alert on my phone from our joint credit card. A charge from QuickPrint Document Services for $47. The timestamp showed it was made at 2:03 p.m., right when Duval said he'd be at his personal meeting. What documents did he need to print? We had a printer at home. I called the print shop, pretending to be checking on my husband's order. The clerk said they couldn't give out information about customer orders for privacy reasons. The way she said privacy reasons made me even more suspicious. What was Duval planning that required such secrecy? That evening, when I got home with Lily, Duval was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop. He'd made dinner, Lily's favourite spaghetti, and had set the table nicely. But there was something mechanical about his movements, like he was going through the motions. During dinner, he asked Lily about school and helped her with her math homework. He was the perfect father, attentive and patient. But he barely looked at me. When I tried to bring up the credit card charge, he simply said it was for work documents and changed the subject. After Lily went to bed, I found Duval in our bedroom, organising papers into folders. He had 3 accordion folders labelled House, Auto, and Bank. When I asked what he was doing, he said he was just getting our documents organised. It had been on his to-do list for months. "Is this about Friday night?" I asked directly. "Are you trying to punish me for having a social life?" He looked up at me then, and his eyes were so tired. He said he wasn't punishing anyone, just trying to get things in order. The way he said things made it sound like more than just paperwork. That night, he went to bed at exactly 10 p.m., 2 hours before I usually did. He didn't kiss me goodnight, didn't even say goodnight, just turned off his lamp and faced the wall. I stayed up watching TV alone, but I couldn't focus on anything. Around midnight, I noticed something different about our bedroom when I went to get ready for bed. Duval's phone was charging on his nightstand, but it was face down. He never used to do that. His wallet and keys were on the dresser, arranged neatly in a way that seemed deliberate. Everything about his behaviour was changing. I checked my phone one more time before bed. Dima had sent a message saying he was thinking about me, hoping I was okay. I wrote back that Duval was acting strange, possibly planning something. Dima replied immediately, suggesting that Duval might be projecting, that maybe he was the one hiding something. The idea seemed crazy, but as I lay in bed listening to Duval's steady breathing, I wondered if Dima might be right. Why else would Duval suddenly become so organised, so calm, so distant? What was he planning at these mysterious personal meetings? Saturday came with Lily's 7th birthday party at her favourite family restaurant. I'd been dreading this day all week, knowing both Duval's parents and mine would be there. The restaurant was packed with weekend diners, and we'd reserved the long table in the back corner for our group. Duval drove separately with Lily, saying he needed to pick up the cake first. I arrived to find his parents already there, Robert and Maria, sitting stiffly at the table. Maria had decorated with princess balloons and pink streamers, exactly what Lily wanted. She barely smiled when she saw me. "Where's Duval?" Robert asked, not bothering with a hello. I told him they were getting the cake. He nodded and went back to studying his menu like it was the most interesting thing in the world. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. My mother Carmen arrived next, giving me a big hug and whispering that everything would be fine. She'd been supportive about the whole Dima situation, saying Duval needed to learn to trust me. My sister Eleanor came with Jake, looking uncomfortable. She'd been distant since the photo incident. Then Dima walked in. I hadn't expected him, but Eleanor admitted she'd invited him since he was practically family. Robert's face turned dark red, and Maria pressed her lips together so tight they disappeared. When Duval arrived with Lily and saw Dima, something flickered across his face, but then it was gone. He just nodded and pointed to a chair at the far end of the table. "Uncle Dima!" Lily ran to hug him, and he picked her up, spinning her around. Duval watched silently, then busied himself with arranging the cake on the side table. He was wearing the shirt I'd bought him for Christmas, and I wondered if that meant something. We ordered our food and the conversation was painfully polite. Everyone talked to Lily, asked about school, complimented her dress. But the adults barely looked at each other. The restaurant was noisy with other celebrations, and I noticed a woman at the next table had her phone out, possibly recording her own family, but we were definitely in the background. Dima started telling stories about our college days, the funny ones that always made everyone laugh. "Remember when Sarah convinced the whole dorm to have a slip-and-slide race in the hallway?" he said, grinning at me. "She was always the life of every party." I laughed, maybe too loudly. "Those were the days when we could stay up all night and still make it to class," I added, catching Dima's eye. "Some traditions never die, right?" I winked at him, and Duval's hand stopped moving halfway to his water glass. Maria cleared her throat. "That must have been before you met Duval," she said pointedly. I told her no, actually, Duval and I were already dating then. He just wasn't part of our friend group yet. The yet hung in the air like I was suggesting he still wasn't. The food arrived, and Duval focused entirely on cutting Lily's chicken into small pieces, making sure she had her vegetables, wiping sauce from her face. He was in full dad mode, which usually annoyed me because it made me look like the fun parent, but today I was grateful for the distraction. Dima kept the stories coming, each one highlighting our special bond, our inside jokes, our adventures. "Sarah was the only one brave enough to come with me to that concert in the sketchy part of town," he said. "Everyone else bailed, but not Sarah. She's the most loyal friend anyone could ask for." When it was time for the cake and toasts, Robert went first, wishing his granddaughter happiness and wisdom. Maria added wishes for kindness and strength. My mother talked about family love lasting forever, which felt pointed. Eleanor kept hers short and sweet. Then Dima stood up with his wine glass. The whole restaurant seemed to get quieter, or maybe that was just my imagination. He smiled at me before starting. "I want to say something about family, because that's what we're celebrating here. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who stand by you no matter what," he continued, looking directly at me now. "Sarah has been my rock for over 10 years. Through every heartbreak, every triumph, every moment that mattered. She's shown me what real loyalty looks like." He paused, then turned to Duval. "You're a lucky man, Duval. You got to marry her. She could have had anyone she wanted." The silence that followed was deafening. Even Lily stopped fidgeting with her fork. Duval slowly raised his water glass, said simply, "To Lily," and sat back down. His father's knuckles were white as he gripped his fork. The woman at the next table was definitely recording us now. That was beautiful, Dima, I said into the awkward silence, raising my own glass. To friendship and family, the ones we choose and the ones we're born with. Duval's mother made a sound like she was choking on her water. After the cake was cut and served, Duval took Lily to the bathroom. The moment they were gone, Maria leaned across the table toward me. "What are you doing?" she asked quietly but firmly. "You're hurting my son in front of his daughter." I told her she didn't understand our friendship, that her generation was different. "We didn't need to sleep in other men's beds to prove we were independent," she shot back. "We understood respect." "Respect?" I laughed. "Duval doesn't respect my friendships. He wants to control who I spend time with." Robert looked like he wanted to say something, but Maria put her hand on his arm. When Duval returned with Lily, he mentioned casually that he had another meeting scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. "Another one?" I asked. "What are all these mysterious meetings about?" "Just handling some personal business," he said calmly, helping Lily with her ice cream. Dima made a joke about Duval being secretive, probably planning a surprise party or something. I laughed and said, "Duval loves his little mysteries, don't you, honey?" Duval didn't respond, just kept helping Lily. A waiter dropped a tray somewhere behind us, and everyone jumped except Duval. He was completely focused on our daughter, like she was the only person in the room who mattered. The party wrapped up awkwardly, with everyone leaving quickly after presents. Duval's parents hugged Lily goodbye but barely looked at me. His father pulled him aside and whispered something urgently, gesturing with his hands. Duval just nodded and kept saying, "I know, Dad, I know." As we were leaving, the restaurant manager approached our table. "Excuse me," he said quietly to Duval. "We've had some complaints about a disturbance. Some other diners felt uncomfortable." He glanced at me and Dima, who was helping me with my coat. Duval apologized to the manager, said we were just leaving. The manager nodded but added, "The video has already been shared online. You might want to handle that." My stomach dropped. What video? Who had recorded us? In the parking lot, I checked my phone frantically. There it was on Facebook, shared by someone I didn't even know. The video of Dima's toast, titled "Husband Humiliated at His Kid's Birthday Party." You could hear every word Dima had said, see Duval's face, see Robert's angry expression. Duval buckled Lily into her car seat while I stood there watching the view count climb. 50 views, 70, 90. The comments were already starting. That poor husband. The friend is definitely sleeping with her. Did you see the dad's face? "Duval?" I started to say, but he cut me off. "Not now, Sarah. Not in front of Lily." He got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing in the parking lot with my phone in my hand, watching our private moment become public entertainment. Dima touched my shoulder gently. "Don't worry about it," he said. "People will forget in a few days." But looking at the climbing view count, I wasn't so sure. This felt different. This felt like something that would follow us forever. Sunday afternoon at the park should have been peaceful after yesterday's disaster. The playground was busy with families enjoying the warm weather, and Lily ran straight for the swings like always. Duval pushed her while I sat on the bench, trying to look like a normal family. My phone buzzed with another text from Dima asking if I wanted to get coffee later. I was typing my response when Lily's voice cut through the playground noise. "Daddy, why don't you sleep in your big bed with Mommy anymore?" Every parent within earshot turned to look at us. Duval's hands stopped pushing the swing, and Lily pumped her legs to keep moving. I felt my face burn as I stood up from the bench and walked over to them. "Sometimes adults need their own space, sweetheart," I said quickly, trying to sound casual. "It's just temporary while Daddy and I work through some grown-up stuff." The words sounded hollow even to me. Lily dragged her feet to stop the swing and looked up at me with those big brown eyes that saw too much. "Is it because of Uncle Dima? He made Daddy sad at my birthday." The question hit like a punch to the stomach. Duval knelt down in front of her, his voice gentle but firm. "Mommy and Daddy both love you very much, no matter what happens between us. That will never change, okay?" She nodded but didn't look convinced. Are you getting divorced like Emma's parents? Lily asked. Emma said her daddy sleeps in a different house now and she only sees him on weekends. The word divorced hung in the air between us like a living thing. Other parents were pretending not to listen, but I could feel their judgment. No one's getting divorced, I said quickly, shooting Duval a look. Daddy's just being dramatic about Mommy having friends. Duval stood up slowly, his face completely neutral, and suggested Lily go play on the monkey bars. She ran off but kept looking back at us. That evening the doorbell rang during dinner. It was Duval's parents, and they hadn't called ahead. Robert looked grim, and Maria had clearly been crying. They said they needed to talk to both of us about the situation. We can't stand by and watch this anymore, Robert said once we were all in the living room. Lily was upstairs playing, but I knew she could probably hear us. Sarah, what you're doing to our son is cruel. I felt my anger rise immediately. What I'm doing? Duval is the one making a big deal out of nothing. He's turned you against me with his lies and exaggerations. I looked at Maria for support, but she shook her head. We have eyes, Sarah, Maria said quietly. We saw the birthday dinner. We've seen the video. Everyone has seen it. People at our church are asking questions. This is humiliating for the whole family. Robert stood up, his voice harder now. If you continue down this path with that man, we will support Duval in whatever he decides to do. And I mean whatever. The threat in his words was crystal clear. Are you threatening me? I asked, standing up too. This is my marriage, my life. You don't get to interfere. Duval hadn't said a word during the entire exchange, just sat there watching us argue about him like he wasn't in the room. After his parents left, I found Duval in the kitchen organizing papers again. He had different coloured folders now labelled house, auto, bank, and a new one labelled school. Everything was so neat, so organised. It wasn't like him at all. What are you doing? I demanded. Why are you letting your parents attack me like that? He looked up briefly, then went back to his papers. I'm just getting our documents in order. It's something I should have done years ago. His phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. I saw it flash on the screen. Ridgemont office, 3:30 p.m. Tuesday. When I asked about it, he said it was another personal appointment. The way he said personal made it sound like a wall between us. You're planning something, I accused him. All these secret meetings, all this organising. You're probably hiding money or trying to make me look bad. He just kept sorting papers, not even bothering to deny it. Your parents are poisoning you against me, I said, my voice getting louder. They've never liked me, never thought I was good enough for their precious son. Still nothing. He just kept working like I wasn't even there. Later that night, Elena called while I was in bed. Duval was in the guest room again, door closed, probably on another one of his secret phone calls. Eleanor sounded worried and tired. Sarah, I need to talk to you about the wedding, she said carefully. Jake's family saw the birthday video. They're concerned about the drama. Some of them are threatening not to come if things get worse. Are you serious? I couldn't believe my own sister was turning against me. You're going to let Jake's uptight family dictate your wedding? She sighed heavily on the other end. It's not just them. Aunt Linda called Mom. Uncle Tony is taking Duval's side. The whole family is splitting over this. Is Dima really worth all this chaos? The question made me furious. Dima is my best friend, I said firmly. If Duval and everyone else can't handle that, it's their problem, not mine. Eleanor tried to say something else, but I hung up on her. My own sister, choosing her perfect wedding over supporting me. The next morning, Lily came into the kitchen with a drawing from school. She'd made it during free time on Friday, her teacher had written at the top. It showed 3 people holding hands. A little girl in the middle, a woman on one side, and a man on the other. But the man had dark hair like Dima, not light brown like Duval. Who's this? I asked, pointing to the male figure, though I already knew. That's our family, Lily said simply. You, me, and Uncle Dima. He's fun and makes you laugh. My heart sank as I realised what she'd drawn. Where's Daddy? I asked gently. She shrugged and said, He's at his meetings. The innocence of it made it worse somehow. In her mind, Duval had already been replaced by the person who was around more, who made Mommy happier. Duval walked in just then, saw the drawing on the counter, and his face went completely still. He looked at it for a long moment, then at Lily, then at me. Without a word, he took his coffee and went back to his office. I heard him on the phone a few minutes later, his voice low but urgent. Yes, I understand. Tuesday at 3:30. I'll bring everything we discussed. When I walked by his office door, he stopped talking immediately. That afternoon, while Duval was out with Lily at the grocery store, I tried to look through his organized folders, but he'd moved them somewhere, probably locked them in his desk drawer. His laptop was password protected with something new. Even our shared Google Calendar had been changed, so I could only see my own events. The distance between us was growing wider every day. We lived in the same house, but might as well have been strangers. We only talked about Lily's schedule, bills, basic household stuff. Nothing real. Nothing that mattered. That night, as I lay in our bed alone again, I could hear Duval in the guest room on another phone call. Through the thin wall, I caught fragments. Documentation, timeline, best interests, proper channels, legal words, cold words. I texted Dima about what I'd heard. He replied immediately saying Duval was definitely planning something against me, probably trying to make me look like an unfit mother. He suggested I start documenting things too, keeping track of all the times Duval was absent, all his secret meetings. Don't let him paint you as the villain, Dima wrote. You haven't done anything wrong. Having a male best friend isn't a crime. His words made me feel better, reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that Duval's jealousy was the real problem. But as I saved screenshots of our conversation, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Duval's calm was different now, not defeated, but determined. Like a man who'd made a decision and was just following through with the plan. The bedroom felt cold and empty without Duval, even though his clothes still hung in the closet. 3 weeks of sleeping alone had become my new normal, but tonight felt different. From down the hall I could hear him on another phone call, his voice low and serious behind the guest room door. I crept closer and pressed my ear against the wood. His words were muffled, but I caught phrases that made my blood run cold. Proper documentation is essential, he said. Yes, the timeline is established. Everything is in order. There was a pause then. I understand the process. Friday at the venue. The floorboard creaked under my foot, and his voice stopped immediately. I heard his desk drawer lock click, then footsteps approaching the door. I quickly moved back to our bedroom, my heart racing. What was happening Friday? That was Elena's wedding day. The next morning over breakfast, I confronted him directly. I heard you on the phone last night. You're planning something behind my back. Are you trying to hide money? Turn Lily against me? My voice was shaking with anger and fear. Duval looked at me with that new calm expression that drove me crazy. I'm not hiding anything, Sarah. I'm just being organized about our situation. Everything I'm doing is completely legal and proper. The way he emphasized legal made my stomach turn. If you're thinking about divorce, just say it, I challenged him. Stop with all these games and secret meetings. He took a sip of his coffee before responding, weighing his words carefully. I'm not playing games. Games are what you've been doing. I'm simply protecting myself and Lily through proper channels. His voice was so controlled, so measured, it was like talking to a stranger wearing my husband's face. I threatened him then, said I would take Lily and go stay with my mother if he kept acting this way. You can't just take my daughter away because you're jealous of my friendship with Dima, I said. Duval set down his coffee cup slowly. You can do whatever you feel is right, Sarah. But Lily stays here, in her home, in her school routine. That's not a request. The way he said it sounded like a fact, like gravity or mathematics. That afternoon, I met Dima for lunch at our usual coffee shop. I told him about Duval's behavior, how he'd become this cold, calculating person I didn't recognize. Dima listened intently, then leaned forward with a theory. He's probably having an affair, Dima said. Think about it. All these secret meetings, the emotional distance, the sudden need for privacy. He's projecting his guilt onto you. It seemed impossible, but Dima insisted the signs were all there. When I got home, I tried to check Duval's phone while he was in the shower, but he'd changed the password. His laptop required two-factor authentication now. Even our Netflix account needed his approval to log in. Everything was locked down tight. Thursday evening, Duval asked me to sit down for a serious conversation. My heart pounded as I sat across from him at the kitchen table. This was it, I thought. He's going to ask for a divorce. I've been thinking a lot about our situation, he began carefully. I've consulted with professionals about the best way forward. My mind raced. Professionals meant lawyers. He'd already seen divorce lawyers. Whatever happens next, I want you to know it will be handled properly and legally. No drama, no public fights, no games. Everything will be done through the right channels, fully documented, in the best interest of Lily. His words felt like a verdict being read. We should maintain civility at Eleanor's wedding tomorrow, he concluded. After that, everything will be resolved properly. The way he said resolved sent chills down my spine. Eleanor's wedding reception was perfect until the man in the suit walked in. He found me at the family table during speeches, asked if I was Serafina Vance, then handed me the manila envelope. You're being served with divorce papers and temporary orders, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. My hands shook as I opened it. Divorce petition, temporary custody, giving Duval primary residence. I had to leave our house within 72 hours. Every humiliation was documented, the photos, videos, witness statements. The judge had already signed it. Duval took Lily's hand and left quietly while 200 guests stared at me.